Hello, everyone. I hope you are all having a nice conference. I'm very impressed by this. It's very professional stage. I'm not used to it. I used to go to a GodotCon. There was like a single room, and now there's a lot of people here and all the games there. So it's always nice to see the growth of Godot at this moment. And in this talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to contribute to Godot and like what can you do to help. A lot of people asked, what can I do to help? How do I get involved with the process? And this talk is to kind of give an overview about all the different ways that you can do that. A bit about myself. I started contributing to Godot in 2015, so it has been quite a while. Now it's a completely different engine back then. And so I do have an experience contributing, so I think I can say a lot in this talk. I'm currently the maintainer of GDScript. I did a lot of work for Godot 4, you might have heard that. Also did a lot of work in the GD extension part. I'm currently a board member of the Godot Foundation. And recently I started the company called Vertex Ludi, which is a company focusing on consulting and support for Godot developers. So what is a contribution? So starting with like a dictionary definition, it's like the giving or supplying of something that plays a significant part in making something happen. So yeah, you can see that's very generic kind of thing. It can be like anything. And I think that's a very important point that I want to drive in this presentation is that a contribution is not specific things. It just can be anything that plays a role, like in the Godot development, anything can be a contribution. So the first thing that I want to point out as a contribution is to use Godot. So if you use Godot as your daily driver, as your game engine, as your main game engine, this already helps. If you're making games using Godot, you're making like the coolest things, the things that we put on our showcase, the thing that we make our yearly show reel videos. Those are the things that help Godot growth because we can show to everyone else that it is possible to use Godot. You can use Godot to make nice games, any kind of game. We can make 2D games, we can make 3D games, we can make like XR games. There is a lot of things that are happening. In Godot, we can make like games for the web as well. And everything that it's viable, and we need like more games to show more people that it is possible. Some people are still a little skeptic, that is Godot really an engine that can do anything? And doing your games is already a contribution to Godot just by the virtual of it. And the other point that I want to make is that if you want to become like a contributor to the community or to the code or to anything else, you need to use Godot first. Like, you need to get used to the engine before you start, actually like making pull requests or reporting bugs or anything else that I'm gonna talk in this presentation. You need like using Godot is a prerequisite. You need to already know the engine to contribute the engine. So first point, use Godot. The second point is probably the first thing that comes to mind whenever people heard the word contributing to open source projects is that you need to make code. You need to write code and make a pull request, and perhaps like you also have to get approved and get merged, and that's the way to contribute. That's the first thing that first thing that comes to mind. And it is a contribution, of course. It's not the only thing. That's why I want you to talk about more points than this. I don't want to focus too much on coding, but it is something that is available to anyone who can program. And the things that you can do with, like, if you know how to program, especially C++, because that's what Godot is based on, you can do bug fixing. And it's really interesting that if you are using Godot and you find a bug, and then you try to fix that bug. I think that's a very good step to start contributing. That's how I started contributing to Godot. I was using it, I found a problem, and I'm going to fix the problem. And then I submit a pull request fixing the problem. That's how I started getting involved with Godot. And that's also why I think it's important, again, to use Godot first, because if you want to contribute to the code, you need to understand like how Godot works as a user, for the user perspective, before you deal with the more internal parts of the engine. And there's really many people who like to work on new features because it's very shiny. You make a new big thing for Godot. That's really cool. But the problem is we're not always very sure that we want to add the features, because adding a feature to Godot is very expensive. It's more expensive than people realize, because we need to maintain the feature. And if it's not working very well, or if it's not a good way, not a good approach to do that, and now we have a broken feature that nobody's using, but we cannot really remove it because there's like one or two people who are using that feature, and then remove the next version, we just broke their games. So we always take very care to, that's why there's a lot of open pull requests for instances, because people sometimes work on big features. And also, if you're like a new contributor, we don't know if you're going to stick around to fix the potential problems that are going to arrive from this big change in the engine. So I think it's important that if you want to work on a feature, you need to talk to the contributors first and discuss and see if the approach is viable before you put your time and effort in doing the code itself. And because, they also take longer to get reviewed, because, there is just a lot of code. So I'm a reviewer, I look at big requests and say, no, I need to take time to review this. So, but if it's like a 2-line bug fix, I can just say, okay, that makes sense, and just approve it. So that's why I recommend first contributions, try to bug fixing, you get used to the code base, you can understand where everything is. That's a very good way to start contributing if you want to contribute code. But there are other ways. Now, if you know how to code, you probably know how to read code. And if you know how to read a source code, you can also help in reviewing. Now, reviewing is a bit more complicated because, there's like a random person in the internet who just approved this pull request. Can we trust the person? We don't know. But, at least we can say that someone looked at it. And for a maintainer that's actually reviewing the code, they say, okay, someone looked at it, and it's okay. I guess I can check a little bit and confirm that's actually okay. So doing the review per request also help, but mostly if you find something that's not okay, this one is going to cause this problem over there, and that's more interesting because people are waiting for a proper maintainer to review, but if you tell if you help people fix their pull request before a maintainer reviews, it just makes everything more streamlined, because when a maintainer gets the time to actually review it, all those little problems were already solved because of the community helped. So I think that's a very important point to make, that if you know how to read code and if you're comfortable with pull requests and GitHub and everything, you can help just find those little things. Approving does not help a lot, but if you can find a problem in comments, oh, there's a problem here, that's really helpful. You can do style reviews, oh, this formatting is wrong, or there's a typo here, or something like that. The problem is that if a maintainer did not approve yet the pull request, it might be possible to be rejected. And if you're talking to the author that you need to fix typos and stuff like that, it's not very interesting. So unless it's already approved by a maintainer, it's not very interesting to do this kind of review. And always, if you want to do something like that, you should be talking with the contributors. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. And you can also test. You can just download the code, and if you can compile Godot. Sometimes the build artifacts are still available on GitHub, so you can download the engine that CI already had built and test it and see if everything's working, if the feature is working as intended, if it didn't break anything else. So there's Another way to contribute is a little more, it's still technical, but it's a little lesser than coding a new thing. Documentation. So Godot has a good documentation, I believe. I've heard this a few times before. It's very complete. We have a lot of things, but it's not like 100%. It's never going to be 100%. Like because we're all making new things. Not all of the new things are documented properly, unfortunately. But that's something that you might be able to help. And sometimes there is missing documentation. You can just say, okay, I need documentation for this. I don't know how this works. And then you look at the docs, and the docs don't say anything. It's all empty. And you're like, how does this work? And if you know how to read code, that's a good opportunity to start like looking into Godot source code. Like you can look at the function and look at the source code of the function and you see, let me see what it does. And then you understand like step by step, okay, it does that. And then now that you know that the function do that, you can just go to the documentation and add a new description for the function. Because there was none, and now you understand how it works. And sometimes the documentation is wrong. Sometimes we update the code, and we didn't realize that actually changes the behavior a little bit, or changes something, and the documentation falls a bit behind. So you might notice that, oh, the function is not doing what the documentation says it's doing. And then you can talk to someone, and then you ask, is the function broken or is the documentation wrong? And then might say, oh no, the documentation is wrong. Then might be able to offer, no, I can fix the documentation then, and then it's gonna be better. And it's also like, it's a lot of text, especially on the docs page, not only on the class reference, but all the documentation pages in Godot. There's always like spelling and grammar. We wrote a lot of code. There's a lot of people who write code. I think the majority of people are not like native English speakers, and I'm not, but so it's very common to have like a little mistake here and there, and something that doesn't make a lot of sense. The sentence structure is not very good. So if you are good with like writing and reviewing like text, that's also a good thing. The only thing that if you want to fix a typo, it's not really that good if you just fix one typo and send a pull request to the documentation. Ideally, you do like a larger review, a review of a full page, and with a lot of things, and just do one pull request with a lot of things, because that just makes the process a little bit easier. Next point, translation. Godot is available in a number of different languages, and that works both for the editor interface and the documentation. And I think that includes the class reference, not entirely sure right now, but I think it does include that. And that's just a lot of things. And as I said before, like not everyone is a native English speaker, and some people do not really have access to the English language. They just don't know English. I come from Brazil, and so I know firsthand a lot of people who just cannot read in English even. So for them, using the Godot in Portuguese is like perfect. And Godot is available in Portuguese and many other languages. So we have like an online platform called Weblate, where you can go and contribute translations and strings for essentially anything that's in the engine, the editor interface. You can just translate it. And it's a very easy process. You don't need to be like technical or anything. You just need to, like, two things. Like, it's important to coordinate with the community, because there are people who are already doing the translations, unless maybe for your language there's no translation yet, then you can start one. But if there's people already doing that, you should not just blindly change like all the things because, oh, I don't agree with these translations, and I change everything, because it just generates conflict. So it's important to always collaborate with the people who are already there, and maybe like try to find them and offer suggestions. The Weblate platform that we use for translations, there is like space for comments and stuff like that. We are also open to create new channels in our Rocket Chat instance. where all the contributors are. We have a few channels for languages. I think we have one for Spanish and one for German, I'm not mistaken, but their teams are just coordinating there, and if there's another translation team who wants to coordinate there, we can also do that. So I think it's a very interesting point because you don't really need to be very technical. Like I said in the beginning, you need to use Godot. I mean, if you already use Godot, you're already used to the interface, so you know what the menus do, or if you're translating the documentation, you already know what the thing does. So maybe you can, it facilitates you for translation, even if you're not a very technical person. Reporting bugs. I think that's something that's very important to point out, because people sometimes do not realize that reporting bugs is actually a valuable contribution. Because if you don't report bugs, the maintainers don't know about them. If they don't know about the bugs, they cannot fix them. So it's very important that we have the bug reports. We like the bug reports. They're very nice. They'll help us, everyone, make the engine better. And also for new contributors, if you're interested in actually doing a code contribution, you need the bug reports to know what to fix. You know, I want to fix a bug, but what bugs I'm going to fix? There's a lot on GitHub that you can look into. But it's very important to make a good bug report. And what is a good one? So you need to describe very well what you expected to happen and what is actually happened. And that's the contrast that we're looking for, you know. Or is this, I expected to do this and this happened, but that happened. So that for me is a bug. And sometimes the maintainer is going to say, no, that's how it's supposed to work. That's just maybe a documentation problem. Maybe we need to improve how clear the function is, but that's how we intended to behave. So that's important to tell what you expect and what happens, because then we can just realize the difference, and then you can say, okay, no, you're right to expect that, and it should work how you expected, but it's not. So we're gonna look at it. So you also need to go the steps to reproduce. This is very important because a maintainer is gonna try to make the bug happen in their own machine to see what's happening and then fix it. And then when they fix it, they need to test again to see if it's actually fixed. So they need to be able to reproduce the bug. They need to make the bug happen on their own. And that's like an important step in the process of fixing bugs. So if you want to fix bugs, also, that's like one way, that's what you have to do. You have to test, see the bug happening, see where the code it is, fix it, and then test it again, and then, okay, now it's working fine. And then maybe test something else that might be related to make sure it's not broken, stuff like that. And so for that, you need a good report, and that includes not only the steps, but if possible, you have what we call the MRP, which is the minimal reproduction project. That is a very, 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 very small project. Sometimes it's just one scene and one script, or even less. That's you press, and then you can add a few steps to make the bug, because sometimes it's not like just press play and the bug happens. Sometimes you have to do something. But if you detail that in the steps, and then I just download the project, I run on my machine, I follow the steps, and then I can see the bug happening. And that helps tremendously. I love when the bug is like that, because I can just, I don't need to waste time like making a new project and then copying all the code and then making the scene and then adding sprites or something like that, because it's already done. I just need to download it. I need to run the code, open the project on the Godot, and then follow the steps, which should be a few. I mean, should be very few steps. And then I already see the bug happening. I can, okay, there is a bug there. I can see where the bug is, and I can find and fix it. And when I fix it, I can see if I actually fixed it, because I can test the same project again. So that's very important to report, make good reports. And that's already a valuable contribution. That helps a lot. Yeah, the other point is testing. So we often make like pre-releases, essentially, the releases that came before the actually stable. And we got into a very nice workflow, like since Godot 4, of making constant releases, making very short periods for time. And I think that's very, very interesting for the community. But also, we need to make sure that the engine is stable. We need to ensure that there's not like super wild like crashes and bugs and stuff like that. And for that, we kind of rely on the community. We don't have like a team of quality assurance, to work on the engine, test a lot of things. We just don't have the resources. We kind of rely on the community. So if you're doing a project, it costs not much time for you to download a development version or a beta version of the next Godot version. And then you open your project on it. Hopefully you open a copy of a project, because sometimes things can go wrong, but always have a backup, please. But you can see, oh no, I opened the new Godot development version, and it's like, I opened Godot 4.4 dev 3, and then it's like completely broke my game. Nothing's working anymore. And then you can make a bug report. But always, you can make a bug report that's like really good. You can say what to expect, what did happen, steps to reproduce, and other things. But that helps, because now we know that this particular development version introduced a bug. And I mean, if you test like the 4.4 dev 2 and the 4.4 dev 3, and the 2 is fine, but the 3 is broken, we can tell that something happened in between those, and then we can pinpoint exactly when that happens. And it's think, oh, it was this pull request that actually created the problem. And that actually makes it easier for us to find where the problem came from. And it's very interesting to make sure the engine is marked stable, is stable, because sometimes a lot of people only test when it's already tagged stable, but we need people to test before that, because we cannot really test all the possibilities, just not feasible for us. And that might not look like contributing, but actually does help a lot. And I think it's very important to make sure you test, especially big projects. Sometimes we just cannot foresee that something is going to happen. And if you're testing, we can just help make an engine better for everyone. The other one, I think, is discussion. And I think it's important to point out that discussion is not an argument. A discussion is an exchange of ideas. Because we have a team of maintainers of many expertises inside Godot, but of course, it's a small team of people. And they have their own experiences, and the larger community is much, much bigger. They have much, much more experience with a lot of different projects, a lot of different areas. And sometimes having this discussion is very productive, especially for like new features or usability, or if you have a problem, I want to do this, but I don't know how to do this. This doesn't seem to work. I cannot find a way to do this in Godot. And that's something that we have the proposals repository, where you can suggest, like, you can say what your problem is, what the proposed solution for that would be. That's a way to generate discussion. We sometimes have some work groups. Sometimes the maintainers like, oh, I'm thinking about the new feature that was going to work like this. What do you think about that? We have like, for instance, we had like recent changes in the tile maps, and there was like people talking to some people like, what do you think if the tile maps work like this or like that? And then we started a discussion and to reach an engine that's better for everyone, that's like has a participation of everyone. So even if you're not like super technical, you are using the engine. I mean, that's why I did the first point is use the engine, because if you're using the engine, you know what the problems are, you know what the problems you're having, and you can participate in the discussions to talk about those problems and to talk about proposed solutions and see if that's going to actually solve your problem or not. And giving the feedback on the design features even before they are implemented. that helps like grow the engine and make sure like when you add a new feature is actually a feature that people are going to use and is very wanted, and I think that's very important. Demo projects. So we have a repository with many like demonstrations for many areas of the engine, and it is very good for understanding how the engine works. You know, if you want to know how to use physics, there's like a demo for physics. You want to know how to make translations, there's a demo for translations, for instance. And there's many, many different things. It's always important to have those things because some people like to read documentation and understand how things works. Some people are just want to look the thing working and see, okay, I can do the same thing. You know, it's much easier to learn like this. Some people prefer to learn like this. So having the demos showcasing the features is always good. And we have a lot of demos, but I'm not sure if we have enough demos. And as always, like discuss with the community, with the contributors to see if something is interesting. But we can have like multiple demo projects and talk about different things and show different things. And if they look good, it's even better because I mean, people like, okay, this is visually pleasing, you know, and people trying out the engine are gonna like it. And there's also the existing demos who are out there. A lot of them are made by programmers, are not that visually appealing, but you can help like in making them better. There's all the opportunity, and if you like to use Godot, and if you like to make games in Godot, there's opportunity to maybe use your skills as a game developer for Godot without actually having to go into the internals of the engine. You know, that's a very good opportunity to, you know, start contributing, because there's also a part of the contribution workflow is also part of our open source ecosystem. So we have plugins. We have a lot of plugins already. If you go to the asset library, you can find a lot of things that you can install into Godot. You can make like dialogues, or you can make some input buffer, or any other things that Godot can do. And that's actually very interesting because now you can add something to Godot that's not actually in Godot. It's just something that you download, an external, and that piece of functionality is available for everyone. You can do the asset library, for instance, that you can download a lot of things. But the interesting part is that helps create the community, essentially. Because you have now this piece of software that you can download, and is very specific to a particular game. Would not be very interesting to have it in Godot, because I mean, like you may want it like a terrain editor, and a lot of games would benefit for a terrain editor. But if you're making a 2D game, you don't care about that. I mean, you're doing something else. Or if you're making like a visual novel, you might be interested in the dialogue system, you know, that show paths and possibilities and branches. But that's not very like core to the Godot side. So making plugins is actually something that helps a lot. So we have a tool that you can share with the community. That's a way of contributing to Godot as well. So I think it is important to remember that we are talking about contributing. And when people think about contributing, as I said before, the first thing, oh, I need to do a pull request to the main Godot core source code. But that's not the case. Like making plugins, making them available, making people using them and distributing those things. This is also a contribution to Godot because it helps like everyone. You know, it's everyone helping everyone else. Tutorials and courses is a bit like similar. People need to learn how to use Godot, people who don't know already, and that's very important that we have this available. We can talk about if you already have a platform for talking about Godot, if you want to create some, or if you are in education, you might find interesting. So you make teach Godot, you make content teaching Godot, and that actually helps growing the community, because as my first point, which I want to reinforce again, is like using Godot is like the first thing. And if we do like tutorials and courses, we have more people using Godot. And also like it creates like this effect of growth. Is very important to spread the knowledge. So it's not necessarily about Godot, but also about like game development techniques. There's a very specific things, because we all know that game development is always faking it. You fake it until it looks magic, but it's all under the hood. Everything is just made to look like that. It's just you know how it works. Sometimes it's not very obvious for someone who is new that this particular technique is done like that. So if you already know how to do that and sharing it, that's a very interesting approach. And that's like always improves the community. Is always some sort of contribution, because every time a new person comes to the Godot community, I'm learning Godot. Like, where do I look? I need to learn. I want to learn Godot. So having those tutorials and courses and stuff like that available is always very important to the growth of the community. So, as I said before, sometimes people thinking that contribution is like code on the main Godot source core or something like that. But we use other types of code, essentially, because we have like multiple repositories in the GitHub organization for Godot. You look there, you can see there's a lot of different things. Some of these are like things that help our own development. We have a few websites that shows, like, we have a list of proposals that are mostly voted and stuff like that. The PRs by file here is also a tool that the contributors use a lot. It's not super crazy, but we have the website. Our website is also open source, and people can find bugs in the website, and people can fix them. You can find things, and you have the asset library, or you have the VS Code plugin, or you have the GD extension, you have the C++ bindings. There's a lot of other things in the Godot ecosystem that are in the Godot Engine organization on GitHub that are not necessarily just the engine itself. So if you're used to web development, you might be interested in doing something for the website or something like that. The documentation is also uses a few things for the website, and that's one thing that you can do to contribute. If you're not used to C++, but you're used to web development, there is an avenue you can do that. And there's also like bugs. Maybe you found a bug in the asset library, or you found a bug in the website. You might want to report that in the same way. Make a good report. You don't need the project, because, of course, it's not a good Godot bug, so you don't have a Godot project. But you show what you expected, what happened. Okay, that's something that helps solving the problems. And pull requests, sometimes people make like fixing the bugs, and we need a review for those too, so you can say, okay, no, this actually fixed the bug, or no, this doesn't fix the bug, or something like that. Local events. So there's many communities around Godot, anywhere in the world. Here, I'm from Brazil. There's a community in Brazil. In fact, this picture is actually a meetup that we had there during Gamescom Latam. And it's always interesting to talk to people in person when we can. Like this event here is very nice. But we can go to the GodotCon every month. Like, nobody can do that. But we can make like local, small meetups in your city or stuff like that. And if there is already one, you can go and participate and be active. Or you can maybe start organizing one if that's your thing. And I think that helps like creating this close-knit community that we already have, and keeps improving, because you can always exchange ideas with other people is always very nice. And just this environment of events and and stuff like that. This helps Godot as well to grow in the sense because now I learned about Godot last week, and then I found out there's like a meetup in my city, so I want to talk to those people, and then people learn more about Godot that way. That's very interesting, and if we can also maybe provide some help, and if you talk to the contributors, maybe we can provide some tips and stuff like that, or maybe we can create a community of event organizers or stuff like that. So there's always an opportunity for many areas. And this has nothing to do with code, for instance. It's very social kind of thing. So it's very non-technical way to contribute that anyone can help. The other is promotion. Maybe there's already like a game development group that's not only focusing on Godot, but people don't really talk about Godot. Maybe we can start talking about Godot because that's related to game development. Or maybe there's like a college or a school that is teaching game development or is teaching programming. Maybe they can consider Godot as an option. If you're like familiar already with environments and stuff like that, just please don't send spam to anyone. We don't want like sending like a lot of spam. Just like for the people you know, for the people, for the groups you're already involved in, bringing up the topic might be interesting because that helps reaching out to more people and talking to more people, and I think that's a very way to contribute. And yeah, then another one is participating in the community, because I think that's what makes the community, is everyone interacting with one another, and that helps like make sure that Godot is also active, because if I have some question about something that I cannot fix in Godot, I don't know if it's a bug or if I'm doing a mistake, I might go post in the forum, just what happened, and someone else can answer. But for that, we need people actually looking and answering. So that's something that's very interesting. And honestly, I used to do that a lot when the community was smaller. There's not a lot of questions, and that helped me like understand a lot of game development itself. Because sometimes someone find a problem, and I'm intrigued by the problem, and I want to find a solution for that. And then just that is an exercise in itself that helps me understand everything better, and it also helps someone else to understand it better. And anyone else who might come in the future who had the same problem, they now have like a history they can check and say, okay, that's a way to solve this problem. And sometimes you have your own questions you might want to ask in the community. And as I said, like in the future, someone might have the same question that you did now, and then there's already an answer there, either because someone else answered you or because you figure out the solution and you post the solution there. Please always post the solution when you find it, because that helps a lot. Imagine finding a forum post, there's the person just say, oh, I solved my problem. Please don't do that. Please post your solution. And I think that helps a lot in contributing about that. And of course, we have the Godot Foundation, and the Godot Foundation accepts like financial donations and sponsorships, and it is always a way to contribute to Godot, because we use the funds to make the engine that you all love. We help like the Godot growth a lot, and there's a lot of areas that we don't really have like maintainers that are volunteers, and we need to pay someone to fix things. And we need the money to do that. And we also do the events, the GodotCon is possible because of the contributions of everyone. Of course, we have like sponsors specifically for the event, but we wouldn't consider that. We didn't have the funds to, like raise everything and having everyone here. So it's very important to we have the dev fund. I think it's very important to keep it up to date, because that helps the growth of the engine in itself. And that's a way that pretty much anyone can contribute. Anyone who has the resources can help a little bit. And as I say, there's sponsors for the GodotCon. You can maybe sponsor like events like this. And if you're doing like local events, you might be interested maybe in like sponsoring a local event. That also helps a little bit. But yeah, so donation is very welcome all the time. And I want to touch on just a very few tips about the contributions. The Git knowledge is often required if you're contributing code or if you contribute to the documentation or any other repositories. You need to do a pull request and you need to use Git. If you don't know Git, it's going to be very difficult. So you do need to learn a little bit, and there's a lot of resources for that in the internet. I don't have time to cover any Git on this talk, but there's many things. And there's also some visual applications that you can use to use Godot, to use Git, that helps sometimes the beginners. And another thing is like, many people might say, oh, there's a lot of open pull requests. Why they take so long to get merged? And the real thing is that most of them don't take a lot of time to get merged. We merge a lot of PRs. There's a lot of PRs open, but there are many PRs closed. There are more PRs closed than open. And usually it's because it's a new big thing, it's a new feature. We are not sure if that's the right approach, if the feature is really the way to go in Godot, if it really needs to be part of the core, and that generates a lot of discussion, and that takes time, and it's a big pull request, needs time for reviewing. So that's usually why pull request takes very long. Actually, I want to go to the next slide first, because we have a contributors chat.godotengine.org, where all the contributors are and the maintainers are there. And that's for all contributors, it's not just for the code contributors. So if you're doing documentation, if you're doing translation, you can also go there to help. And if your pull request is not merged, you might want to go there and go to the specific channel about the topic and then ask someone to review or why it's not being reviewed or something like that. We also have the new contributors channel in there for support. If you're new, you don't know what to do, you can maybe ask for a little help. We can also maybe offer help with Git as well. And then we have like multiple channels. If you're interested in physics, you can go to the physics channel. Interested in rendering or audio, we have all the different channels. And if you don't know which channel you should join, go to the new contributors and ask about a particular topic. There's always someone who wants you to help. And that's it. Any questions?
I wanted to ask, if I have an open PR and it's been open for a while and there are maybe no maintainers that specifically target this, right? So that's like audio related. Is there a good strategy like where I could get some more feedback for the PR to get it considered to be merged, or is there any strategy to that?
Yeah, so for getting the PRs reviewed, you might want to go to the chat. And depends a lot on the area. Some areas have more maintainers, some areas are a bit more complicated. If you're not sure, you can go to the new contributors, or you can go to the specific area if you know the channel, and ask for, like, who can review this? I have this PR open, like, can someone give a check, and stuff like that. There's always help, because sometimes someone is online and they see the message and they just look at a PR, and if it's simple, they might just review right then. If not, they might like reply at least and say, okay, this is a bit complicated, and we need more time to review. And then you can repeat this process. Just don't be annoying, but I mean, if there's a week passed and nobody said anything, you'll maybe want to ask again. It's just that we rely a lot on volunteers and not always have the free time to do that. We're trying to fix it, but for now, that's the reality.
I would like to thank you, because I feel like contributing and reporting issues is always really pleasant with Godot, because I tend to find it frustrating with other open source projects. But do you do surveys where people can just like vote for issues and features that they really need? Like, for instance, the presentation yesterday said interfaces or traits for Godot script.
You mean if there's a place to vote for those things?
Beside going through issues on GitHub.
Yeah, not really. So we have the proposals repository. That's where the new ideas are, like the one for traits or anything else. You can always just give a thumbs up, because we have this website that we can list the most upvoted proposals. and it's always something we consider, when going through everything. The only problem is that sometimes the most popular things are just not necessarily. It's more like the more vocal people, there's something like that, because we had like the most upvoted proposal in a repository. I'm not sure if it still is, but it was the Vim mode for the editor. So, I mean, who wants the Vim mode for the editor? Probably. I mean, there's a few people here, of course, but it's of course not something that the majority of people would like, but it's the one that's mostly upvoted. Voting is a way to bring attention, but it's not the final way,
Also, I have a suggestion for learning Git. Oh my Git, it's a great Godot project for learning Git. Use it.
Good.
Hi. I was just wondering, you've been talking about testing a lot, but can you contribute by adding unit tests?
Sorry, I don't think I understood the question.
Can you contribute to the Godot engine by adding unit tests?
Oh, that's actually a good point. Yes, unit test is something that you can do, yes. So I work on GDScript primarily, and one of the things that I did for Godot 4 is to add a test suite. And over the time, like a year and a half now that Godot 4 is released, we are only been adding tests. It's really good to catching regressions, because sometimes we change something in GDScript and then it breaks the test and going, okay, we cannot do that. We need to fix it. And we fix a bug. We know that the bug is not going to happen again because there's a test. So yes, if you want to contribute with unit tests, there's a few areas of the engine that already have some. So other areas do not have any. So it's something that you can contribute. Yes, good point.
Well, hello. One question regarding AI in use for testing. Do you already have a trained AI model for Godot that you use for new features? Just want to ask if this is a thing.
Not really, no. We don't have anything like that. That would probably generate a lot of discussion because the AI is now a very contentious topic. So we don't have anything like that. There's not really any plan that I know of, but we're always up to something, Okay,
thanks.
Regarding plugins, is there any option to consider maybe groups of plugins that can be installed together, right? Because usually if I start a new 3D project, I need to install like 8 to 10 plugins in order to make it viable. Of course, there are like ways to script this, right, or plugin managers, but maybe like a more public and like visible option to just show like a bunch of suggested add-ons in the user library might be nice, not just the most recent ones, right?
Yeah, no, we don't have anything like that to install like multiple plugins. I mean, you have the asset library, but you only download one at a time. What we do have is templates, because you can also add templates for the asset library. So when you're in the project manager, there's the asset lib tab, and you get a template, and the template might already include some plugins. That's what can happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to handle it for now. Thanks.
That was the last question, apparently. So thanks a lot for everyone. If you need any questions, you can follow me, or I'll be around here. So thank you.